viewers, we're getting some more developments coming in where Trump has dialed Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a post on social media platform Truth Social, Trump says, I just had a lengthy and a very highly productive phone call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. And we discussed many things: Ukraine, the Middle East, energy, artificial intelligence, the power of the dollar, and various other subjects. Trump further says that as we both agreed, we want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Russia and Ukraine. We agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. We have also agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately, and we will begin by calling President Zelenskyy of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation. And Trump added that I believe that this effort will lead to a successful conclusion, hopefully soon. Very a big update, and I'll just go ahead and play out that exact statement of Donald Trump, the president.
We had a great call, and it lasted for a long time, over an hour this morning. I also had with President Zelenskyy a very good call after that. And I think we're on the way to getting peace. I think President Putin wants peace, and President Zelenskyy wants peace, and I want peace. I just want to see people stop getting killed.
Розмова з президентом Трампом хороша, розмова детальна. Я вдячний президенту за щирий інтерес до наших спільних можливостей, до того, як ми можемо разом наблизити справжній мир. Тривала розмова, ми обговорили багато нюансів дипломатичних.
All right, we have a guest joining us live right now, Arnab Mittal, communication strategist, live from Washington, D.C., joining us. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Mittal. This is a very important conversation that Trump had with Putin, and he has been talking about this even during his campaign, Trump's campaign. The key takeaway is that the leaders have agreed to begin negotiations to end the war in Ukraine, and this could definitely bring in a new change. What is your perspective? How do you really see things really work out in terms of negotiations to end the war in Ukraine?
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, this is just a start, to be honest. We don't know exactly what those negotiations would look like, who the main negotiators are going to be. And you have to remember 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, we had the Minsk II agreements before when Russia took over Crimea, so 2014 and 2015, and those negotiated agreements only lasted for 8 years. Now, honestly, those agreements were done by Germany and France. They were the leaders on that, and Ukraine felt betrayed. So really what needs to happen in this negotiated agreement between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine is that there has to be a sense of win-win for both sides. Both sides have to feel like they got something out of it, and both sides have to feel that this will be a lasting peace. You know, it won't be something that will get overturned in the next 10 to 20 years or whatever you want to call it, and the situation on the ground comes to a halt, that the fighting stops. Ukraine is currently conducting offensives in the Kursk region, which is Russian territory, and Russia is conducting offensive in eastern Ukraine as well, where they have made some gains, but it's been stalemate for the last 2 years. So it's very important for both sides to realize that they won't get everything that they want, but it's very important for them to know that whatever the negotiated agreement is, that it will last for longer than at least 10 years, and so that they don't feel that they have to continue on a war footing, because that's what the Russians blame the Ukrainians for, that they immediately brought in NATO troops after the 2015 agreements, and Ukraine blames the Russians that they brought in. They were immediately preparing to attack Ukraine after the 2015 Minsk II agreements, and that's what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth himself has said, that whatever the negotiated agreement will be, it will not be a Minsk 3.0 agreement that will only result in more war further down the line. And I think that's really the important thing to point out here. President Trump values personal diplomacy. President Trump knows the power of personal diplomacy, as he's going to conduct that with Prime Minister Modi just tomorrow. So I think what President Putin wants is he wants recognition and respect. He believes that his country, that he's a leader of a country that is on par with the great powers, China and America. And he feels that he has been disrespected by the European powers for the last 20 years, essentially. So whatever agreement that happens with America's hand in it has to include some level of recognition and respect for Russia. That may include removing of sanctions. That may include some kind of economic relief for Russia as well. Their economy is in the ground, in the trash bin, and their military has been completely destroyed. So they would like some of that removed. And for the Ukrainians, they want security guarantees. Excuse me. The Ukrainians want security guarantees that will probably involve, and that's what Secretary Hegseth has said, that it will involve non-U.S. troops probably patrolling the border. So it's a DMZ situation like with South Korea and North Korea, where foreign troops, international troops, peacekeepers are patrolling the borders between Russia and Ukraine, and that will most likely guarantee security for both sides because Russia will not dare to fire upon international troops, and neither will Ukraine, and that will sort of result in a lowering of the tensions, lowering of the temper, and will hopefully not result in another war down the line, 8 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line.
Also, Mr. Mittal, very, very important given the fact that Trump has taken this lead for negotiations, but a lot more has to be done. For example, we're seeing that the NSA there, Mike Waltz, has said there has to be conversations held with the European allies. There has to be some kind of a talk between the other nations, because we have seen that a big division between Russia and Ukraine, with countries taking sides, each of them taking sides either for Ukraine or Russia. So, of course, we can expect more diplomatic talks to take place. What do you think will happen on that front?
Well, to be quite blunt, I think that the Europeans will be cut out of this negotiation for the most part. They may pretend, there may be some, ceremonial showing of shaking of hands and things like that. But quite honestly, this is going to be between personal diplomacy from President Trump and his, people between Russia and Ukraine. Because again, you have to understand the Republicans who have come into power now do not trust the Europeans to do anything but act in their own interest. And so for the Europeans, it's in their interest to keep Russia on a war footing. Obviously, there was a Nord Stream pipeline. There were some agreements between energy and gas, but Europe has completely shifted their perspective to be anti-Russia. And so it is not in their benefit anymore to be pro-Russia. And so it will be a very hard turn for the Europeans to suddenly turn from hating Russia, calling the Russians all kinds of names, to now, turning around and saying, well, we want peace and we want a hand in it. They may try to put their foot in it. They may try to be involved in it. But I think the only way this gets solved, and this is what history has shown us in these kind of negotiated, protracted agreements. I mean, we are now basically at a third stage of the Ukrainian war that has been going on since the late 90s. And so if the Europeans are there, they're going to want to act in their interest. And Trump is not going to agree with that. He wants to act in America's interest. He wants to make sure that Russia and Ukraine stop fighting. That is going to be his red line versus what the Europeans may want on, a lot of other things, guarantees of all kinds of different things for their security.
All right, thank you for joining us there with all those details. Our guest, Mr. Arnab Mittal, joining us there and speaking about what exactly is happening in terms of the negotiations, which are soon yet to begin between Trump and Putin.